Oh, it started. Awesome. All right. Hey, everybody. I know some of you missed our last confirmation class. We were talking about picking our confirmation names or patron saints, why we do it, how we do it, and how the saint that you pick for yourself is going to be used during your confirmation mass. Now, I want to run through this really quickly. We had lots of time in class to actually start the research. Here's the short version. Way back in the ancient days of the church, many of the people that were becoming Christian were coming from pagan Greek and Roman families, and their parents had named them after one of the pagan gods. And it got a little bit awkward when, our first commandment is worship no other gods but me, and a whole bunch of our Christians were named after other gods but me. So they would adopt a new Christian name, oftentimes in honor of one of the other Christians in the community or one of the saints that had kind of inspired them or that they respected or looked up to. Now, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to pick a name of one of the saints who has something in common with you. It could be anything from a condition in life to some kind of situation or circumstance that you've lived through. It could even be something that you're interested in, passionate about, or a saint who did something really great in the world that you want to kind of model your spiritual journey after. So, for example, say you care a lot about the environment. You might look up saints who have something to do with animals or the earth or the environment, and you would come across a few really common ones, like Saint Francis of Assisi is the patron saint of the environment. If you have a particular animal that you're really passionate about or care a lot about, you might find that there was a saint who already had a connection to that animal. Like Saint Ambrose had a special connection with bees, or Saint Benedict had a connection with birds. Saint Hubert had a connection with geese. There's all kinds of things. Let me show you the website that I had my class use. Here's your address right here. It's catholicsaints.info. Really easy to find. And although it has a million kind of useless tabs over here on the right, it also has something really useful down at the bottom. If you scroll down to where it says lists, if you're on the mobile device, the mobile version of the page, it's going to be all the way down at the bottom below everything else. You can kind of ignore all this. This is not important. Look for your lists tab in the sidebar. Alphabetical is going to give you a list of all the saints that this website has in alphabetical order. There's like 15,000 of them, which is way more than we need, but thorough is good. Here's confirmation names. I don't find this to be the most helpful tab. All it is a bunch of different saint names without anything about them. So if you happened to already know who Saint Fabadius is right here, you might be like, oh, yes, him. He's the one I want, but I don't know who that is. And I'm guessing most of you don't know who that is either. So instead, we're going to skip the confirmation names, and we're going to come down here to where it says patronage topics. Of course, they put the most important one very last in the menu. Now, here's an alphabetical list of things that saints are connected to, patronages. So let's say your family comes from Vietnam, and your ancestry and culture is really important to you. You might look up, all right, who's the patron saint of Vietnam? Now you can see this is a big long list of these, but I'm going to go alphabetically, and I find Vietnam right here. I click it, and I've got two different saints, Joseph and Our Lady of Lavang. If you don't know who they are, you can click on either one. It gives you a little bit of information. Lady of Lavang is kind of a bad example because that's just Mary, and there's tons of stuff about Mary. But if I click on Joseph, here's a one-paragraph biography and all the things that this saint is associated with: doubt, hesitation, accountants, attorneys, barristers, which is a British way of saying lawyers, carpenters, children, craftsmen, immigrants and exiles, families, fathers, furniture makers, grave diggers, and happy deaths. The list goes on and on and on. Your goal is to try and find a saint that has 2 or 3 things in common with you. I picked for myself 2 different saints because when I was confirmed, I hadn't yet decided if I wanted to get married and have a family or if I wanted to be a priest and spend my time in the church. So I actually took 2 saints, Mary, patron saint of mothers, family, children, as well as John the Baptist, patron saint of preachers and proclaimers. So my confirmation name is Christopher John Mary. That's how I was introduced, as John Mary. You could pick 1, you could pick 2. Let's do another quick example. Let's say art. Maybe art is really your thing. I'm going to click on A. I happen to know the A's are a very, very long list. There's got to be something in here, right, that you can find. I scroll to art, Catherine of Bologna. Or I could come down a little bit farther and I get artists. Catherine of Bologna, Fra Angelico, Luke the Evangelist, Michael the Archangel. If there's a particular kind of art, here we've got stained glass, patron of stained glass workers. But maybe you're like, nah, that's not me. I like to draw. Is there a patron saint specifically for people who draw? So I go to the D, I look down, drapers, no drawers. But if I come to P, I might find painters, icon painters, general painters, Benedict, Bernard, Catherine, John, Luke. Pull one up, read the little couple paragraph story, and see if what this saint did with their life is something that you can respect, something that you would like to accomplish in your own life, something that you can feel good about. Now, I caution you, most of you probably were given your name by somebody else, by a parent, perhaps by a grandparent. Maybe your name comes from some sort of cultural or family tradition. I know the men in my family going back generations were all named after their grandfathers. So we had kind of alternating names. Bernard Martin, William Martin, something like that. So, you know, my dad decided to break that. He didn't care for those names, but he was named after his grandfather, who we found out later is the one who left Germany and brought the family to America, chasing the better life, or so we thought. You know, we did some family research and found out that he was actually wanted in Germany for murder. He was a fugitive and he was fleeing from the law. Maybe that's not a great guy to be named after. Maybe that's not a name you can really be proud of. I got my name because my parents were expecting a girl and my mom's best friend was Christina. So I was going to be Christina until all of a sudden they found out I was not a girl and they had to switch really quick. Christina became Christopher. I would like you to find a name that's going to mean something to you, a name that you will like and be proud of, but also a name that's going to tell the bishop something about why he should confirm you. If you walk up front and your sponsor introduces you to the bishop using the name of the saint that you pick, which is what happens in your confirmation mass. If he says, or she says, Archbishop, I present Saint Francis, that's going to tell the bishop a lot about your spirituality, your values, the things that matter to you, and the things that you want to do to make the world a better place. Francis was known for taking care of the earth and trying to promote peace. But if you were to say, I don't know, Archbishop, I present Saint Cecilia, he's going to immediately know she is the patron saint of musicians, and he's going to know that you are someone who is musically talented, gifted, or wants to make music part of your spirituality and your prayer style. If you were to say, Archbishop, I present Saint Ignatius, he would know that you are more adventurous. Maybe you like to travel. You want to be part of, connect with cultures all over the world. And if you said something like Saint Antony, who's one of our early Christian monks, he'd know that you're more of a private person, more kind of peaceful, quiet soul. They're all great, but he wants to know who you are. And I assume most of you have not met the Archbishop before, and he probably doesn't know who you are, what you're about, or what you're going to do with these gifts of the Holy Spirit that you're contemplating this year. The name that you pick, the name that you choose for yourself, is going to tell him a lot about you. It's going to tell the whole church a lot about you. Pick a good name and you'll remember it your whole life. Rush through, pick a name that starts with the letter Q, because I don't know, I like the letter Q. That's going to mean nothing to you. Here is one more trick that I learned a long time ago. Say that you pick a name, you find a saint that you really like a lot. I'm going to come down here to Christopher. Saint Christopher. All right, big guy, had a vision of Jesus, patron saint of travelers, kind of a neat story. But maybe Christopher, you're like, ugh, I don't like that name. I had this teacher named Chris one time and I hated him. I never want that name. Consider finding a version of the name that you do like. We already know that all the saints are known in cultures all over the world, and different cultures express the same name in different ways. Joseph in English becomes Jose in Spanish, Yeshua in Hebrew becomes Jesus in English. So one thing I like about this website is that, it gives me the name St. Christopher right here, but then it also gives me a whole bunch of different linguistic versions of the name. Cristobal, Kester, Keats, Ofero. They're all different language versions of Christopher. You guys, I'm sure, already know Mary. Oh, come on now. I may have done this the long way. M for Mary. Mary, Marcelina, Marcellus, Margaret, Margarita, Marguerite, Maria. A lot of Marias. Marie, Mark, Martha, Martin, Martyrs. Oh, was it really at the top? I'm so sorry. Here we go. Mary. Wrong Mary. Mary. Nope, still the wrong. Man, there's a lot of Marys. Do we have a Mary, Mother of God? Mary Magdalene. Oh, heavens to Betsy now. Mary of the Incarnation. Still the wrong Mary. All right, I give up. Say that you wanted to pick Mary, the Mother of God. Certainly a saint we can all look up to, but maybe you're just not a big fan of the name Mary. Your meanest aunt is named Mary, or your brattiest cousin. I don't know. Look at all the different versions of Mary. We've got everything from Mary, Maria, Marie, Miriam. They're all the same person in different languages. If you pick a saint that you love who has a name that you hate, do not be afraid to explore a little bit and try and find a version of it that's going to sound better to you. I am someone who thinks the more obscure the saint or the more unusual the name, the more fun it is to talk about and explain that story. I have oftentimes told my classes about a student who grew up on a family farm and he always wanted to be a farmer. So we did a quick search for who the patron saint of farmers were. And he found a guy with one of the weirdest saint names ever, Saint Homobanus. Look at these. Homobonius, Omobono. I don't know. I don't know how to say all of them. He loved the saint. He didn't love the name, but he took it anyway. I kind of wish he'd explored and seen if there was a version of it that he did like. So here is what I need you to do before we get together at our next meeting. This is the homework that we did at the previous class, things that you're good at, things that you struggle with. Those are supposed to give you some ideas of things that you can look up on the website. This second page, which I'm going to put in the email that goes out, is what I need you to fill out. Your name goes on the top line, the saint that you pick, goes on the next line. And again, it can be 2 saints if you want, but at least 1. Then tell me, what is this saint the patron of? There could be many things. If you look up Saint Joseph, you might have 40 things that he's the patron saint of. You don't have to write those all down, just the 2 or 3 that have something to do with you. And then consider, what are people kind of who know the saints going to think about you when they find out that this is the saint you pick? What will declaring this patron saint tell the community about you? I might write here, I picked Saint John because I might be a preacher, and Saint Mary because I might have a family. Really simple. Now, there is an alternative. If you choose, instead of a saint name, you could take the name of a virtue. Those are faith, hope, love, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, goodness, self-control, which would be an amazing name to be introduced to the bishop. Archbishop, Archbishop, allow me to introduce self-control. I've never had that happen. Would be fun. If that's something you want to do, maybe look up the fancy Latin name for it, which is gonna, and just add a little extra fun. I think doing things in Latin is fun. I probably think it's more fun than you do. That just occurred to me. At any rate, that's what needs to get done. Find the saint, fill out the form, and send it in to me. Now, if you want, instead of filling out the paper and bringing it in, you can write it on the paper, snapshot, email me. That works. You could open an email, write out the sentences instead of doing it on the paper form. That's totally fine too. I just need to get your name in to our system with the explanation of why you picked them. If you are totally stuck, you have looked and you cannot find a saint, send me an email. I love this stuff, and I am more than happy to do a little bit of the research for you. And if you find a saint that you like with a name that you don't, and you're having trouble finding different versions of the name, feel free to let me know about that too. I've got some additional resources that I can look up for you to help. I really, really want you to have a name that you will feel proud of and a name that is meaningful. So if there's anything I can do to make that happen, please just let me know. Our next class is in January, and that is our last regular class. So please don't put this off until the last minute. It becomes more stressful for you and for me. Reach out if you need help. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next one.